Awesome. You made it to the last session of the last day. Congratulations. All right, I am here to break your brain. I am going to challenge you in ways that you have probably never been challenged before. And that's on purpose, because I think information security is broken, and it's going to take us in this room to fix it. So, those of you that work for me have seen this before. It's my leader's intent. I'll let you read it, but the basic premise is we are in a cyber war. And if you're on the team, if you're on Team Cyber Defense, you're an elite cyber warrior. You are charged with the defense of data and operations. You do it through vigilant observation, extreme ownership, prudent collaboration, and disciplined action. You and your team see every false positive as an opportunity to practice, and every true alert a battle to win. These are not easy things to do. They are not simple. They are not trivial. It is hard. Where are we at? Why did I lead off with the fact that we're broken? This is the Checkpoint weekly intelligence report for the last 2 weeks. This week and the prior week and then the week before that. Louis Vuitton. Do they have resources to protect their environment? It's a luxury brand. Profit margins in the thousands of percent. On the other side, top bullet point, U.S. Energy Department. Do they have resources to protect their environment? They suffered a compromise. Dell confirmed a compromise. Insurance company Allianz Life suffered a compromise. Indian crypto company CoinDCX. The list goes on and on and on. This is for healthcare, Panman Proof Point report. 92% of healthcare organizations, your doctor, your hospital, your insurance provider likely suffered some kind of a cyber attack in 2024. That's up from 88% in 23. 69% of those 92% resulted in disruptions to patient care. Have you ever had an appointment rescheduled at your doctor? Have you ever had a surgery rescheduled at a doctor? It's incredibly disruptive to your life. If you have a child, like I do, and they need surgery, you go to the surgical center and they're like, sorry, we can't see you today for whatever reason. It's incredibly disruptive. The largest breach in 2024, I'll let you guess the name of it. Everybody knows it if you work in healthcare. Affected essentially every American. 3 billion records affected. During just the third quarter, 422 million records were exposed worldwide. The average cost of a data breach is $4.88 million. You're here, you're on Team Cyber Defense, you get it. I'm preaching to the choir. We can move on. You know the OCR Wall of Shame? Have you ever heard of Ransomware Live? It's a live tracker for all things ransomware. They're polling the dark web so you don't have to, and then they summarize it on the live web. 4,527 ransomware events recorded on the Ransomware Live this year. That's not all of them. That's just the ones we know about. 487 just this month. So I ask you again. Well, more facts. If you're not convinced, more facts. 33 million businesses in the United States. 41% of those in 2023 reported a cyber attack. Now, we don't know what a cyber attack is. There's a big asterisk on this, right? But they're reporting some kind of an intrusion probe attack on their network. Almost 60% of all businesses in the United States suffered a cyber attack. It's estimated by 2028 that's going to cost the United States trillion dollars. That's $1,820 billion. Would you drive on the road if you knew there was a 60% chance of getting in a car accident? Anybody? Show of hands? If you drive a motorcycle, that's probably accurate. I don't know if you know that, but. All right, audience survey. Let's, show of hands. I was gonna try to do like scan this 2D barcode and do a survey, but we can just do it as a show of hands. How many of your companies have experienced a cyber attack? Again, I'm specifically not defining what a cyber attack is. Just how many of you, show of hands, have experienced a cyber attack? I would say that's probably 60%, which aligns with what we saw in the survey. I'm going to tighten the screw just a little bit. You may feel uncomfortable with this. It's fine if you don't want to raise your hand to this, but let's define cyber attack now as an attacker gaining a foothold on your network in some way, shape, or form, i.e., you see and observed and blocked command and control traffic. There was malicious code detonation. You saw data staging and or exfiltration, or you suffered a ransomware attack. Show of hands. Much less, which I expected. It's probably maybe 15%. My point is the threat is real, but there's a lot of hype around this as well. So how do we think rationally about this, and how can we do better at this? So you're going to say, Jim, just like driving on the road, that's what makes us safer. We have speed limits, and there's traffic laws, and you have to wear a seatbelt, et cetera. We have all of these things to protect us from ourselves, from our business partners who say, cyber, we don't need to invest in that, right? GDPR, how many have heard of that? Yep. CCP, California Consumer, HIPAA, oh yeah. FedRAMP, if you do any business with the government, FISMA, Sarbanes-Oxley, if you're a financial company, system and organization controls, level 2, there's PCI DSS. Center for Internet Security has a recommendation for top 18 controls. The NIST CSF, NIST 853, Cybersecurity Maturity Model. We have all of this, but yet I just showed you that we're failing. Or are we not failing, right? Disagree with me, feel free. I think we're failing. I think to answer this question, is it working? I think it's unequivocally no. It is not working. Something is broken. Something is fundamentally wrong. Why do we end up with 60 to 70% of our businesses suffering a ransom, a compromise, cyber intrusion? Something is wrong. So the answer is no. What's the problem? We are the problem. Humans, fallible humans are the problem. We're inexperienced. Y'all are here. You're trying to up your game in terms of understanding of what we have to deal with, how to deal with it. There's constraints. You go to the business, you're like, that website, really bad. We should probably fix it. And they're like, we don't have money to fix it. What are you going to do about it? I don't know. There's not enough people. How many of you have plenty of people? There's people on your information security team. They're just like, I don't know what to do today. Everything else is done. I'm just kind of sitting around. I think I'll go watch some YouTube videos on how to hack a WordPress website. How many of you have that situation? How many of you have a zero queue? Yeah, Rich, raise your hand. We'll have a conversation after, Rich. How many of you deal with a limited budget? Everybody, right? We're all fighting for dollars. So there's a fundamental gap between what we know, what we feel, what we understand, and are able to communicate. Something is broken here. So I think part of the problem, it might not be us, but the people we report to, we think of risk wrong, incorrectly. Typically, we think of risk like this, right? This is what the business is doing. There's a desired benefit. I want to get stronger. I want to be more agile and nimble and have better balance. You have to take a little bit of risk. Weightlifting is a risk. You can pull a muscle, strain a muscle. I don't know that I would do squats on an exercise ball, but this person apparently felt that was appropriate. There's some rudimentary safety controls in place. It's a rubberized floor. There's a spotter. You've managed the risks acceptably, right? I think that's the way we think of the business, right? Sometimes it's like, oh, that's dumb. That's really foolish. But the reality is a lot more like this. I have a kid. He's 8, 9. I have a barn garage door. It's 12 feet tall. He likes to do this. He'll grab onto the door while I'm opening it. I think this more accurately describes the reality we face, and I'll explain why in just a minute. It may be this. What would happen if, right? But more likely, I think it's this. I think it's actually, this describes it better. So it's a limited experience. Does this child appreciate and understand what is about to happen to them? No. They do not have the mental capacity to say, that door is going to go all the way to the top, whether I'm on it or not. It seemed like a good idea. It's going to be fun. It's pretty thrilling. The kid may even think he's strong. She's strong. I can hold on. It's no big deal. Mom's right there. It's not a big deal. I probably did it in the past, and it was fine. I dropped off when it was maybe a foot in the air. No big deal. But in reality, the door is moving really fast. Our businesses are moving really fast. you'll end up a lot higher on that door than you think by the time your brain connects to your hands and says, let go. And if you're focusing up at the door, you're not looking at the ground to see how high you are. And in the end, that door is going to roll up and that grip is going to disappear and you are going down. You will experience the consequences of that. That describes our businesses. They're going fast. They're looking up and out. They want to see the next opportunity. They're going aggressively after new business. What they're not looking at is that new business is going to cause them a problem. So what are we going to do about it? How do we manage this? The real problem is risk management. We just got done in this room talking about the fair risk assessment model. That's awesome, right? Start to think about risk differently. We have to be able to think about risk differently. I think, and I'm speaking for myself, you all probably got it, you're dialed in. I struggle with conflating vulnerability and risk. If I'm in the weeds, if I'm in the grass, if I'm looking very closely at what I'm dealing with on a day-to-day basis, it's mostly vulnerabilities. That thing's not patched. That thing's connected directly to the internet. It doesn't have MFA, right? That firewall is not blocking traffic correctly. It's not logging. We don't have a SIM. We don't have, like, you can list, boom, 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 right? Laundry list of things that we deal with. Why do we do that? I think it's easier, right? Number one, it's really easy to enumerate, hey, there's this NIST CSF. It tells me I got to do all this stuff. It's really easy to get into that and think, I don't have that, I don't have that, I don't have that, I have risk. When the reality is, I think part of it is we're emotional as humans. We're variable. You get up day one, on a day and you feel good, right? You're ready to tackle the world. The other day you didn't get as much sleep. Your kid woke you up, your dog woke you up, whatever. You're struggling to stay motivated, right? You cut corners, you skimp, you ride that garage door a little too high to the top. Our intrinsic risk judgment is poor. We have to really work hard at controlling our thinking, controlling our minds, and that's why I want to break your brain today. Get you out of the rut, get you out of the normal course of thinking, to challenge your bias, challenge your thinking, and work on that mental model that we all operate under to think a little bit different. We must form a new habit. All right, my goal today is to get you to detach. What is detachment? Jocko Willink describes detachment as a way to gain perspective. You come off of the normal operational line. You're here, you're at GRCon. In a way, you've already detached a little bit from your normal job. How many of you are responding to texts in real time on your phone? I see a couple people, it could be incidents, right? You could be still doing your job, multitasking, but you made the commitment, you made the effort to get here today to do something different. And that's what this is about. It's doing things differently. The goal is to unfreeze your thinking. A frozen river is stagnant. It's standing there. There might be some water moving under the ice, but it looks like it's not going anywhere. Our brains can get into this idea where we can't get out of our own way. We think the same way about different problems and we end up with the same exact conclusion and result. We have to think differently. Part of this idea of detachment is to get a wider view. Get a different perspective on the world, on life, on your job, on your business. It also gives us the ability to check our emotions. Assume a third party is looking at this. Assume I'm going to talk and have to defend my decision in court in front of a group of lawyers that think very differently than we do as cyber practitioners. Check my emotions at the door. Check my emotions, make sure that I'm thinking correctly, not based on emotion. Decisions in time, not just immediacy. This one is hard, to be honest, right? How do I think time and pressure over time, not just what's in the moment, what do I have to do now? To get off of the operational line, to take a half a step back, gives me an opportunity to look a week, a month, a quarter, a year out. That helps me start to contextualize what I'm dealing with today. So at the end of the day, what I want you guys to do is to be able to leave here with this idea in your head that I'm going to step back, I'm going to make better decisions, I'm going to make maybe even physical adjustments. I've challenged my team, get up and walk around, right? If you're dealing with something hard, you're on the computer, you're on this virtual live stream, whatever, get up, take a walk around the room. A lot of times it'll change your perspective. Control your breathing. Take some practical steps to deal with the stress that we have every day. Finding the good in an adversity. We deal with negative stuff all the time in information security. It's always, there's the next vulnerability, there's the next attack, there's the next response, there's the next thing that's hard. Detaching gives us an opportunity to look at the good that's also happening. That's an encouragement and a motivation. So gaining perspective involves detaching from our emotional response in response to pressure, better assess the situation, identify better solutions, other solutions, thinking outside of that, and making sound decisions. And that's my goal for today. I want us to all take a collective step back, look at the situation we find ourselves in, the statistics that I started with, and maybe think about ways of changing what we do. All right, y'all are at kind of tables, generally speaking. I have 2 challenges. I'm going to introduce them to you. They're real world. I had to deal with this. At the end of last year, one of these 2 scenarios I had to deal with. You can guess which one. The percent was changed, but at the end of the day, what I want you to do is, as a table, take like 5 minutes. We'll do a brief readout at the end of that 5 minutes. You'll understand it when I say it. Okay, so you're the head of information security, CISO, director of security, whatever it is. Financial headwinds have resulted in the need to reduce your information security budget by 20%. How do you achieve that cost savings? Because at the end of the day, if you don't achieve it, you're going to be part of that 20%. So I suggest you get really sharp with the pencil and then justify it with a why. Why would you do that? And I'm purposely doing this at the very beginning before I give you some tools because it should be a challenge for us. Take 5 minutes, 20 after, talk about it at your table, come up with a couple of things and a couple of whys, and we'll debrief on that. How hard was that? Easy? No problem. We know exactly what the bottom 20% of our information security program is. Cut it, throw it overboard, not a big deal, go to your boss. We got this, boss. It's going to be an easy, no? Was it hard? Anybody want to give me a readout? What did you come up with? 20% off the bottom of your information security program. Yeah, Austin.
Following the model of my organization, offshoring labor to cheaper labor markets for augmenting cyber staff.
Okay. That got you to 10%. You still need 10 more. Anybody else?
We cut a lot of like nice to haves, like a lot of external vendor engagements, advisory services, things
Yep.
that are good for, like you're talking about, gaining perspective.
Yep.
But they're not critical to the mission.
Yeah. That got you to 5%. You need to find 15 more. Okay. Anybody else? Yeah, Mary.
We talked about looking at the tool set. Could we consolidate on tool set? Could we renegotiate with our contracts as they come up? Could we look at licenses, reduce licenses?
Yep.
Could we look at the staffing and if there are open positions, can we
Yep.
parse that out to different people?
Yep. Any contractors, things like that are easy to remove. How many of you went straight to staff? Like I have a team of 10 and I'm going to cut 2 of them. Some of you? No, it's hard. It is really hard. So, and the reason I say like, hey, that achieved 5%, that achieved 10% is because 20% is really hard. That is a really, really tough goal. And what I'm hoping you guys got out of that is this idea that not all things in an information security program are equal from a risk reduction value perspective, but then defining that is really hard. So if you heard what Mary said, renegotiate with vendors, look at quantities and license volume, look at the controls that apply and map to the technology. The technology is really where the majority of expense is, that and people. Those are your 2 biggest budget items in an information security program. This is my story. My boss came to me last fall and said, because of financial headwinds in healthcare, we're going to have to cut, I don't even remember what the percent was. We ended up getting 17 by doing exactly what Mary said. We didn't cut any staff. We eliminated some open headcount, and we renegotiated a lot of contracts with vendors. Did we reduce risk? No. Did we increase risk? No. Did we shift it? We absolutely shifted it. We changed from kind of a do-everything model. A lot of my engineers are sitting here. You guys remember this conversation in October. We looked at what's the biggest risk to our org, and are we doing that thing the best? And that's what I'm going to give you guys the tools to do the rest of today, is what is the biggest risk to your org, and to think about it a little bit differently. All right. This is my personal story. You can read it. The thoughts that I wrestled through, and we did it as a team, but you cut equally across all functions. We have digital identity, we have governance risk compliance, we have a cyber team. Do you kind of have to go equal across all those, or do you look at which one maybe is driving the best value from a risk reduction perspective? Do you want technology without an engineer to run it? We wrestled with that. Do you want engineers without technology? We wrestled through that. Or take a risk approach and look at the risk reduction value for every dollar spent and figure out what are those things that are the least valuable. I think the answer actually comes in challenge 2. We don't have to do this for sake of time, but you're the head of information security. The board is deeply concerned about information security, and they want to increase your budget by 20%. Now what would you go invest in? Everybody goes to DEF CON. Everybody goes to Black Hat, right? SANS classes for everyone. Is that the best use of that 20%? Or should you look at things like inventory and patching and log volumes and response and recovery if there was ransomware? Like, how do you know what to invest in? How do you think about these things and conceptualize and make better decisions about this? All right, so my answer, let's do a quick debrief. Was there debate and discussion at your tables on these? Yes, there should have been. There should have been some kind of, I think this is better than that. At the end of the day, right? My opinion is this is a better control, this reduces risk more, this is a better answer to this question. You guys should have had that, right? A little bit of debate, a little bit of discussion. So why is there that debate and discussion? Why is there? What do you think? Emotion, right? It's hard. Cutting anything is hard. You cut your family budget, it's hard. There's variability in business to business as well. I mean, let's acknowledge the fact that if you're a bank, you have different risks than if you're healthcare. If you're a retail shop, you have different risks than healthcare does, right? But yet we struggle to find that core nucleus. At least I do. All right, so what's my answer to this question? Y'all are here to hear this, right? Why is Jim going on and on about these risks and the variability of the human component and the difficulty of doing risk assessment? So what's my answer? My answer is actually starting at the top with the prime directive. Those of you that work for Corewell, this should look really familiar. The objective of an information security program is to reduce the likelihood of a material impact to our organization over the next 36 months. You could potentially change that to say over the next 24 hours. And that changes the perspective quite a bit. All right, so likelihood. What is that an element of? Risk. It's an element of risk. It's a component of the risk equation that we always talk about. Material impact is a component of risk as well, right? So this is a risk-based statement at the end of the day. Does everybody know what materiality thresholds are? Do you know what the materiality threshold is for your business? Is it $1 million? Is that material to your business? Material means it'd be really hard to recover from that if we lost it. Not going to shut you down, not going to totally like bankrupt you, but at the end of the day, it would be like, ooh, that's going to result in some really difficult decisions at the CEO level, right, to make these things. More likely CFO, but that's a nuance. The next 36 months, this time component, is what I'm going to drill in on in just a little bit, because it's really difficult to get our head wrapped around velocity. Measure, manage, and monitor risk. That's the point of this program statement. I'm going to drill in a little bit further. We're going to do the silo question. I was on a panel yesterday. We talked about siloed GRC functions. Can regulatory noncompliance have a material impact on your business? You should be going north and south on that one. It absolutely can have a material impact on your business. In the state of Michigan, what's the insurance regulatory body? Anybody know? DIFS. It's DIFS. The Department of Insurance and Financial something, right? Financial Services, yeah. They can unlicense you from selling insurance. Would your business dry up if you're selling insurance and you didn't have a license to sell insurance? It absolutely would be material to your business. That would be catastrophic. Can poor cybersecurity have a material impact on your business? All of the stats that I just showed at the beginning of that, absolutely it can. So, how do we balance that, guys? My postulation here, my theory, is that compliance isn't a separate thing. It is a risk to be managed right alongside of all of our information security risks, whether that's an insider, whether that's a ransomware event, whatever that is. I think we need to lump compliance in with all of the rest of the universe of risks that our business has to face. They're not parallel objectives. They're both part a singular set of a set of objectives for an information security program. Now, each business has a different risk tolerance and a different risk appetite. Appetite is going after new things like AI. How aggressive are you going to do that? Risk tolerance is like, ooh, I don't want to be ransomed. ooh, my retail theft is too high. I need to deal with that, right? Those are risk tolerance and risk appetite statements. So each business has to deal with that, has to define it for themselves, and settle the age-old question, are we a compliance program or are we a risk program? All right, I'm gonna go a little bit extreme here. So part of, if you were in the previous session, we talked about risk, the fair risk model. They have an actual risk calibration. We'll talk about it in a little bit. It's a tool that we can use. So how do we take an extreme example to help drive home this point? So how should investment be prioritized at a macro level, right? You're not talking about your cyber defenses between MFA and logging and response. I'm talking literally at the CISO level, the CEO level, or the CIO level. How do we make investment decisions between identity, between GRC, and between cybersecurity? So how do we do these things at that really high kind of macro level? So it's not easy. I'm not the CISO of Corewell Health, but I strongly influence the CISO at Corewell Health to how we balance this. Again, dealing with the material impacts. It's a two-part answer. I believe this is a two-part answer. I think we need to risk calibrate ourselves. Talked about that. We'll get into that in just a little bit. And I think we need to reintroduce or introduce the concept of velocity into our risk conversations. Historically, we've looked at, well, I'll deal with velocity first, and then we'll talk about the risk-calibrated humans because we can spend a little bit more time on that. Our traditional definition of risk. How many of you are familiar with this? You probably learned it in school, took a certification class, whatever. Impact plus likelihood is our risk. Impact. What could happen? What's the worst case scenario of this thing? What's the likely scenario? What's most likely to happen in a ransomware event? Your systems are going to go down. You're not going to be able to process payments. Not going to be able to provide health care. Probably going to have to take some manual steps to deal with that. Those are impacts. The likelihood then is the chance that this thing happens. It's your gamble, right? Is it a 1 in 10 this year? Is it a 1 in 50 this year? Historically, these are really difficult to define. The likelihood of an event is incredibly difficult. Our cyber insurers, the underwriters, are getting better at this, but at the end of the day, it's really tough. In fair terms, what we're talking about here is the loss event frequency, the LFE, and the loss magnitude. Everybody settled on that? Makes sense? All right, that's the traditional definition. I think it's still functional, but I do not think that helps us define, are we a compliance-based organization? Is our program focused on compliance? Or are we a cyber-based organization and we're focused on cyber? Again, I'm using extreme examples to drive home the point, unfreeze our thinking, and help us to rationalize through this. I think the new old definition, because when I was growing up, velocity was a part of this, and I could never understand why velocity was a part of this. Impact, likelihood, and velocity. Now you might say velocity is actually under the impact. I could get with that, but I think calling it out at the top level is going to have a significant benefit as we start to talk about what is the biggest impact to our orgs. So velocity of the material impact, velocity is of the speed at which the material impact is realized in the organization. Let me unpack that just a little bit to help us understand that. I'm going to define it by an example. So think about it in your head. You don't have to answer it out loud, but which scenario has a bigger impact on your business tomorrow? Ransomware that disables all of your systems and applications and locks your data up, or an audit by a government regulator that has found grossly negligent control gaps in your control program. Y'all know what grossly negligent is? That's like people go to jail, right? If you're grossly negligent, somebody's going to probably get criminal charges attached to it. Like you knew what the regs said and you said, no, I'm not going to do it. See you later, right? That's gross negligence. So I'm painting a very extreme example here to try to get our heads wrapped around this. Which of these is impacting us tomorrow? Anybody want to say the grossly negligent control framework? How many say ransomware? Yes. Your CEO will be in the news if you get ransomware tomorrow. Grossly negligent control findings are going to take years to materialize. So this, to me, helped answer that question of what do I cut? Where do I actually make the sacrifice? Do I support my regulations, or do I look for ransomware and treat ransomware and deal with ransomware? I still have to do the one, but I got to make sure that first one is done really well. I cannot cut there. Maybe even I have to invest there. So let me ask you this. Where at work, where you work, in your security program, whether you're an individual contributor or you're in management or senior leadership, where are your resources aligned based on this idea of velocity? Are they aligned 50-50 to cyber? I mean, let's call it what it is. It's ransomware defense at the end of the day. Or GRC. Do you have really great policies, super awesome third-party controls, but yet ransomware can come in and you're offline? Or are you the other direction? You have literally nothing and you're telling the regulators to just go pound sand because ransomware is the biggest thing that I have to worry about. Go back to the beginning. Are we, as an industry, answering this question correctly? I don't think we are. I'll let you answer it for yourself, though. All right, let me visualize this to help maybe put a finer point on it. Again, I'm going to the extremes to try to get us to think differently about this. I'm not telling you guys to break the law. I don't want grossly negligent controls to control gaps. All right, so this is a visual that I used internally to communicate what we care about in healthcare. Again, this is a healthcare-centric thing. It may work in other industries as well. I think like power could have this as well. Missional impact. Missional impact is your ability to deliver the core services that the business was created to create. Power distribution, power creation, that would be missional impact. The ability to provide tier 1 trauma services in an ED is missional impact. The size of these circles, the area of these circles, in my mind, represents the risk reduction resource alignment required. The biggest risk we have at Corewell Health is to our missional impact. We're a tier 1 trauma center. We cannot divert patients. There's no other place in West Michigan for people to go if we're on diversion. We absolutely cannot support that. So does that mean we need IT systems to do that? No, because healthcare is largely a human-to-human connection still. But yet there's a lot of tooling that's technology-based, diagnostic tooling that is super critical and very important to healthcare. Sidebar, when I first started, we were really ratcheting up our vulnerability program. More scans, more assessments, technology going out and probing the environment. We got a call like, hey, you guys running a scan? Yeah, why? The PACS radiology system just went offline. Radiology is built on 1980s Sun Microsystem technology that was ported into Windows NT. It's incredibly fragile. You send it a packet that literally says hello, and the system goes goodbye. It falls over, dead, has to be restarted. All your vulnerability scanners will say hello first, see what's there when it connects to a system, just an FYI. So we figured this out pretty quick that we were causing a significant disruption to the radiology department. I'm ashamed to say it, but my understanding of the business at that point in my career in healthcare was, oh, well, that's really not that big a deal. It's broken bones, right? That's what imaging is for. Come to find out, imaging is used for just a little bit more important things in healthcare than that, including stroke diagnostics and heart attack diagnostics. So we actually ended up taking the PACS system offline. The clinical system, or the clinical folks, were actually spinning up AeroMed to fly this patient that was on the table trying to get a stroke image to another hospital system. Deeply impactful. You all know what the golden hour is, right? Newsflash. You're riding in a helicopter to another hospital system, you're going to be outside that golden hour. Now, they got it back online quickly. They didn't have to fly AeroMed. It turned out well in the end. I don't know how the patient turned out. I don't need to know. But we learned a really hard lesson in that, and the importance of this missional impact to the organization. So now, fast forward, what if it wasn't us that took PACS radiology offline? Oh crap, that's a really bad day, right? So this idea of missional impact versus monetary impact versus regulatory impact. If I could make that missional impact circle even bigger, I would. I think the risk to our organization from that is significantly more than I can't bill for patient services. I can't receive patient revenue from the services that I've provided. I can't pay insurance claims, right? That's a pretty small impact. It's not zero, but it is a pretty small impact. And then the regulatory impact, short-term violation of regulation, mid-term control degradation, and long-term discretionary control gaps. Those are things we have to record, reference, be cognitively aware of so we adequately manage it. But at the end of the day, I'm going to compromise my regulatory environment all day long to continue to provide missional services. Does that answer a question? Like in my mind, that answers a question pretty vividly. That doesn't mean that I don't do it, but when it comes to prioritizing resources, where am I going to spend my time? What am I putting my effort into? A lot of you are going north and south on that. Now the question is, how do you get there? Right? How do we make that change? It's really hard. All right, let me give you the second tool here. This is the idea of calibrated humans. This in itself could be an entire session, probably a multi-hour session on how to do good risk calibration, because we're fallible. We already talked about that. We are emotional creatures. We are inconsistent. The most disciplined human in the world is still very inconsistent. We're not machines. That's the beauty of frankly, in my opinion, that's the beauty of leading people, right? My job is different every day. Every single day, I get a different cornucopia of stuff to deal with from the people that report to me, and I love it. All right, so part 2, calibrated humans. All right, I'll go back to this one. We love to go fast. How many of you regularly drive under the speed limit?
For legal reasons.
How many of you lost your license because you were speeding too much when you were, yeah, right? We love to go fast, but we don't often consider the impact of speed when we're going fast. Our businesses love to go fast, guys. They growth. If you have a CEO who is even in the slightest bit of mindset of growing the business, they're going to go fast and they're going to want to take risks. They're going to want to drive the car of the business without a seatbelt on bald tires, with no windshield wipers. It's just going to happen. How do we deal with it? How do we manage this? And I think the goal here is to calibrate the way we think about it. So calibrated risk estimation is part of the FAIR. You can Google it. You can literally just go out and look at it and read. There's like it's a 5-minute read to start to think about and conceptualize how we calibrate ourselves and deal with these uncertainties in the really, frankly, hard things to quantify and categorize in our lives, in our tools. All right, so start with the absurd, right? Go to the end. And I've done that with you guys a little bit today to say, don't have a compliance program. Focus 100% of your resources on the prevention and defense against ransomware. That is an absurd scenario. You'd never do that. But in doing that, you start to think about and calibrate your own personal risk tolerance, so that then when you go to apply it to your organization, it's starting to align to what they're dealing with. You're thinking outside of yourself. Eliminate highly unlikely values. In the risk calibration, they talk about confidence intervals. How many of you heard, we believe that this happened with a low confidence? I'll use the nuclear strike on Iran, right? We think we totally destroyed that nuclear site in Iran, and our assessment is low confidence. You hear that, you immediately know what they're talking about. Like, yeah, we see a bomb hit, but we don't know what happened, right? That's the same thing that we're doing here, is you start to eliminate the low and the extremely high confidence intervals, because they're probably not true. The reality is always somewhere in the middle. Reference what you know to narrow the range. I'm going to give you a couple of AI-based prompt tools that really help us to start to do with 1, 2, and 3. Number 4 then is gamification. You start to use confidence intervals, embedding to gauge, like, how confident am I really in this assessment? That third party, they've got some problems, but they got a SOC 2. How confident am I in what I'm seeing from these reports? So this is a whole nother stream of thought. I want to challenge you guys, go do some research, go think about the way to engage on this idea of calibrating every single person in the information security program, whether it's a risk analyst doing third-party risk assessments, or it's a SOC analyst responding to alerts in the SOC. Everybody kind of needs to have their risk calibrated to be able to be on the same page. There is a link right here. I found that honestly just by Googling it. It's right out there. FAIR, all the FAIR stuff is open source, so you can get to it. What I didn't do, it'd be interesting if any of you on a phone, is there YouTube stuff, like YouTube training for this, or LinkedIn training? I bet there is. I just didn't do it. All right, so what are some of the tools we can use to get started on this risk calibration journey that we all now want to run down? So these are prompts. I literally did this. If you have a phone, you can do it. I use Perplexity, Google AI, Copilot, any of the AI tools that have access to the web and can actually pull some of the web-based evidence, if you will, from this. You can use these prompts. I would love for one of you to do this real time for me, by the way. So what is the penalty for not complying with, insert your favorite regulation here? Pick one, I don't care. As soon as you got it, raise your hand. I'll give you a mic. Are insert regulation name violations reported publicly? What is the largest penalty ever reported for not complying with insert regulation here? GDPR is an interesting one. The biggest fines there were against Meta. It was $1.2 billion. Is that material? That's material. I'll just say it. That's material. Even for Meta, that was material. They were worried about that one. What is the average time, insert regulation name here, HIPAA, takes to fully resolve? Like how long could you be dealing with a violation of a particular control or regulation? What is the average? So y'all know in terms of like a regulatory violation, there's these ideas of corrective action plans or CAPs. It's you working with the regulator, there's a negotiation, you say, we're gonna do X, Y, and Z, here's the schedule for that based on our business, they agree to it, and then you all have this corrective action plan. It can take 3 years sometimes or more to deal with these corrective action plans. So what is the average time a corrective action plan takes to fully resolve? Or what is the cost of these things? How much would a corrective action plan actually cost? And then how long do typical corrective action plans take to fully resolve for insert your favorite violation? Anybody have one of these?
Yeah.
What do you got?
PCI, for the first 3 months of noncompliance, was 5,000 and 10,000 per month. The months 4 through 6, 25 to 50K per month, and then beyond 6 months is 100K per month.
Did everybody hear that? Everybody get that? First month, so you have 1 month and it's gonna only cost you $5,000 to $10,000. Is that material? Depends on the size of your business, right? Small mom and pop, that could be material. Your little Etsy shop, that could be material. For a big business like Corewell, nope, we'd write that check all day long. Then that should be a wake-up call though, right? This is where it starts to really get tricky is if you continue to say no to that, now what happens? It's 100 grand at the end of 3 months. Now we're starting to get somewhere. Plus the cost, right? You might get dropped by your payment processors. You might have to pay more per transaction. You're starting to now get material, right? But the point is here, that doesn't happen overnight. How long would it take? I'm looking at my certified PCI assessor. How long would that take for, if you reported a gap on your self-assessment, self-attestation for an audit to come through? Weeks? They would follow up. There would definitely be some questions asked, but it would not be tomorrow. Your CEO likely wouldn't be in the news tomorrow if that happened, right? Now we're starting to get into the velocity idea. All right, a couple prompts for cybersecurity. What are the typical impacts of ransomware on insert business type here, right? Do you know if your business is a target of ransomware? What other businesses in my industry have been a target of ransomware? Healthcare is. We know that. We see it happening. McLaren got hit twice last year in 24. It's bad. How long would it take for business to be compromised with ransomware if it had zero controls? Again, we're going to the absurd, right? We're going to take this and say, okay, AI, tell me what would happen if I had no cyber defenses at all. All of my computers were directly on the internet. All of my software was obsolete. I had no firewall, like no EDR, no people, nothing. I just installed the software. Here we go. Let's run. How long would it take? Anybody want to conjecture or guess as to what it says? It's minutes. It is most hours, right? The first scan that comes by, you're going to be compromised. It's going to happen. All right. If a company had zero information security controls, what controls should they implement first? You can even tailor that a little bit if you've got a favorite control model. Of the PCI DSS 4.0 controls, which ones should we implement first? Do it. It's interesting to see what comes out of that. I was actually my framework was actually warped a little bit as a result of reading those, and that's what we want, right? We want to challenge our thinking, challenge the way we deal with these risks. All right, in conclusion then, and then we'll open it up for questions. What type of program are you really running? At the end of the day, nuts and bolts, what actually are you looking to do? What do you really have? You have to be able to get off of that line, do an honest gut check level assessment. Are we overly focused on our compliance, or are we overly focused on our cyber? And you got to be able to answer that question honestly if you're going to make adjustments moving forward. All right, y'all are here. I appreciate your time. The enemy is nameless and faceless. We do not know who we're dealing with. They're determined and patient. This is not going away in our lifetime. As the cyber warrior elite, you will meet this patience and determination with discipline and vigilance. The war may never be won, but every battle is an opportunity for victory. Together, we're going to defend, we will expunge the threats that infiltrate our boundaries, and we will eventually retire and rest, knowing we left something to the next generation that is better and more secure than when we arrived. Thank you for your time. I'll open it up for questions in the last couple minutes we have.